So I did this video for members, but I also always wanted to do it for the entire channel because I think it's a very fun conversation to have. Weather teams, y'all have seen me use them in basically every tier that I can play. And they're really interesting for the main reason that the lower you go, the more poverty they just look. I mean, oh my lord, we don't get auto setters. We don't get the super potent weather abusers either. And so there's a lot of interesting team structures that you see, and I'm going to talk about NU weather because this generation, oh my lord, we've seen literally every single weather archetype get used, and I'm not convinced any of them look viable, so we're going to talk about that. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed, leave a like if you are, join as a member if you want more content where you can see the original video, which, oh my, I was on something that day. Let's get into it. So, we're going to start with Sand, and the reason we're going to start with Sand is very obvious. Lycanroc is not in the tier anymore. Yeah, that's the only reason. So, when we saw Sand, it was in, I believe, the early weeks of NUPL, as well as the finals of, like, NU Swiss tournament. And the way this team worked was based around Lycanroc. Don't look here. Don't look. The way Lycanroc worked was you ran into Sandaconda and you lost. So, what do you do to help with that? Well, you pair it with a whole bunch of Pokemon that make life on Sandaconda hell. And how do you do that? Well, first off, we have our obligatory Rotom. Rotom is a great mon that switches into Sandaconda the entirety of the game. And, you know, I mean, it has a rock move, sure, but all of them can miss. So you're already okay off there. But you could also occasionally run into Sandacondas that don't have a way to hit Rotom, whether it's like Stealth Rock Glare or Stealth Rock Coil. It's not like you always had a bad time, but okay, say you run into one that can hit Rotom. Well, don't worry, we have a Hatchrim too, with an eject button even. So you could always make sure to deny Stealth Rock. It wasn't overly important on this kind of team, because a lot of the mons even just resist Stealth Rock damage. But it was a nice way to where you could always go into Sandaconda at one time, and it'd get nice momentum with your eject button and bring out, you know, maybe bring out Rotom at that point so that it's getting a free entry. Or maybe bring out Toxicroak and you say, alright, well, Toxicroak's a great lure for Sandaconda. You could run Swords Dance here, you could run Nasty Plot. Either way, you're a very effective Sandaconda blaster. Nasty Plot especially, of course, because +2 Focus Blast is packing it up, you know, sending them to the Shadow Realm. Where Swords Dance, you need to use your Terra, but if you do, I mean, you slam it as well. But don't you worry, it gets worse. God, it gets real bad. Yes, this actually saw more than one use, and it's not ironic. Choice specs, Steel Beam, Berserker. So, I covered a game, I remember, it was a series between, I believe, Luck of the Irish and Elias Sai. It was for semifinals of Swiss. And Elias brought this set. And again, the idea is simple. Berserker is a great lure for Sandaconda, because you would think it'd be a physical attacker. Well, Steel Beam with specs and this ability would just one-shot Sandaconda. And that ain't a check anymore, and even like other Pokemon are still going to take a lot of damage. Yes, your special attack is horrible, but I mean, you get up to 218 with max investment, and then you got specs, it's another 1.5. You got this, that's another 1.5. It has stab already, so that's like another 1.5. And then this is already 140 power, so you see where we're going. It's just like when I talk about certain Pokemon sets. You just keep adding adjectives and adjectives. More modifiers means more fun. And the whole premise of these four right here, you're just trying to get rid of Sandaconda and then let Lycanroc run through teams. Whether it's like Life Orb 4 attacks, whether it's Swords Dance, whether it's like Choice Band. Any of those sets benefited a lot from the removal of the Dirty Snake. Now we're going to talk about archetypes we actually see. So here's Snow. And Snow has had a couple iterations. Of course, there's a Jolteon here, because I don't know what I would replace Jolteon with at this point. So I'm just going to showcase Snow with the Jolteon here, because I think it works out pretty well anyway. We don't have the best of Snow Sweepers, but it's not the worst either, because when we had Jolteon, of course, it's very potent. You got your Terra Ice as well, so when you Terastalize, Calm Mind Jolteon actually becomes a huge menace, because you're getting the physical and special defense boosts, so it becomes a lot harder to revenge kill. Of course, if there's a Scarfisui and Sneasel, it's still going to beat you down anyway, but generally, priority moves are not going to be nearly as threatening. And then you get Glaceon here. At times it's been a Frostmoth. You could run Calm Mind on it. You could even run Specs, although I find that you lose a lot of potential defensive utility across the rest of your team if you're running Specs Glaceon, because that kind of forces Hatcham onto the build. But Glaceon itself is a really pretty solid setup sweeper with Calm Mind, and you can go with Blizzard as well as just a very spammable stab move. Terra Fire with Terra Blast, also quite useful, because it helps you beat down Cryogonal, it helps you beat down Articuno even. And then of course we got Big Beartic. You could run Band. I've also run Heavy Duty Boots with Swords Dance before in 3 attacks. It also works out quite nicely. And then the rest of the team just fills out general needs. So you got like Stealth Rock Bombird, Spike's Quillfish as well to provide you a nice sturdy fighting check. And of course Abomasnow because you need a way to set the hail. This could also have Aurora Veil, and of course that's going to make it a lot easier for one of these things to, set up or just throw off strong attacks. Now, it gets worse. It gets worse. Here's Rain. Now, Rain is, of course, one of my favorite archetypes. But I would be trolling you if I said I think Rain teams look viable, because this does not look like a viable team. A lot of these Pokemon aren't in you. Only, 3 of them are, but like Sableye isn't considered some like godly elite option, right? It's kind of just around to be annoying, knock items usually, but on this team it's a Rain setter because you got Prankster, and you still have moves like Knock Off and Encore to disrupt any bulky Pokemon. Of course, knocking items off of, say, like a Sandaconda, maybe even, I don't know, maybe an opposing Sableye if you need to. That's pretty useful. Maybe even like a Bombardier. You can get rid of its boots, and then your Stealth Rock from Cloth is going to be a lot more effective at weakening it throughout the rest of the game. And the theme here as well, Electrode is fast. You could just set up your Rain, and then you could have like Explosion here and Volt Switch, and it just helps make it easier to get your Rain Sweepers into the battle. Nasty Plot Golduck, y'all have seen me run down teams with this mon so many times. Because, fact remains, we do not have great checks to Nasty Plot Golduck, which is a weird thing to say, but it's eerily true, especially with Rain support, Terra Water, Mystic Water. Like, that's a lot of extra buffs to this mon's damage output. Frequently, unless your opponent has like a Blissey, you don't even need to set up with it. Get your requisite chip damage on Appleton, maybe force it to Terra just through the threat of Ice Beam if you do Nasty Plot versus it and it's already kind of weakened. And once you do that, I mean, you're probably going to be able to spam Surf pretty easily. Then, of course, our obligatory Quillfish. Either form of Quillfish works, but I have Johto Quillfish here with Lumberry because you don't want to be able to get Will-O-Wisped by Sableye. That's really all there is to the Lumberry here. Otherwise, I think you could run Life Orb and just get extra damage, and that's really cool. With this Quillfish over Hisuian, the main benefit is that you already have Stab on your water moves, and you can also run Aqua Jet, which, hey, makes you a lot less reliant on your Rain. And in the Rotom, he's just here for fun. You need something that's immune to ground. You want to be able to switch into Sandaconda's EQs if it ever is like actually getting a chance to use EQ. It just helps. And lastly, and this is a team I will be using in a live soon, or already did use, I don't know yet how the scheduling will go, Sun. And I mean, Charizard's a legitimate menace with Sun, right? Like, this is an actual Pokemon. But Scovillain's not real. This is terrible. Leafeon's not real. But it's not as terrible because, you got Terra Fire, so you're not even worried about Will-O-Wisp. You're just instead worried about, say, like, a Thunder Wave from a Quillfish, or maybe even switching in on a Toxic Spike if you're unable to block them with Hatcham reliably. But this team also plays out very similarly to the Sand team, where the whole point is, I've got Hatcham to give me at least one free switch into my very, very potent Wall Breaker. In this case, it's Charizard. And the whole goal with Charizard is recognizing that NU does not have checks to it, so if you're able to get it in with Sun Up, you just use Terra Fire, you Fire Blast, or Flamethrower, or Overheat, literally like any of the strong stab fire moves, and something is taking 1,000,000 damage. And you just kind of rinse and repeat as much as you can. Of course, you only get one use of the eject button, but as long as you can keep getting Charizard in, you're going to keep getting lots of damage off. Even things like Blissey are not comfortably taking its attacks. And Blissey is not the check you wish it was. And then we got Sableye to set the sun. We got Cloth to set the sun as well. You can even do like Terra Ground on Cloth so that it can block Volt Switch from Rotom if it's necessary. And then just Scovillain and Leafeon are here because there's no other options. Leafeon is a pretty competent sweeper. Scovillain, it might be able to clean up after Zard or Leafeon wall breaks. That's all I can say that's positive about this mod. But yeah, this is how weather has looked so far throughout Inu. Now, with the DLC coming out, we do know Ninetales is a confirmed returner, so I'm letting you know right now. Vulpix will be very standard in Inu for however long we allow Drought to exist. And that may confuse some of you, but when I mentioned at the very beginning we don't have we do have manual. When I mentioned at the very beginning of the video that we don't have auto weather, that is very important to weather's viability. Sun will become much, much stronger once it has Vulpix. The only evidence I need to show you is think back to early Sword and Shield Inu, where our best Sun Sweeper was Maractus. And yeah, we were using Vulpix to set the sun, and Maractus to sweep teams. If that doesn't tell you all you need to know, I apologize, but I ain't got nothing else for you. I hope y'all enjoyed this, though. I hope you're having a great day. Go eat some food, you know? You deserve it. You deserve a nice hearty meal. I'll see you in the next video, though. Peace.